Austin Wintory, an acclaimed composer, was once sitting in a room with Matt Nava, an equally acclaimed game director. They were brainstorming the soundtrack for a new title, a game centered around skating across the surface of water. So the question was simple: how do you score that? Matt showed Austin a podcast clip where the interviewer asked the host how he would score a montage of skateboarders. The answer? A Russian Orthodox church choir. Austin laughed. Of course he did. But over time, the idea refused to go away. What started as a joke slowly revealed itself as something strangely perfect. Months later, that very choir, once left off, became one of the most crucial elements of Austin Wintory's soundtrack for Sword of the Sea. In this video, we'll explore why Austin changed his mind. We'll break down the music and show how every element, especially the choir, helps tell the premise and emotional story of this remarkable game. Let's start with the opening track, from Drop of Flame. This is the main theme of the game. Right away it feels adventurous, like a world full of wonder waiting to be explored. There's also something undeniably heroic about it. To me, the music gives the sense of someone standing up against impossible odds. Not for glory, but for something worth saving. And that's essentially the premise of Sword of the Sea. Harmonically, the piece uses extended chords that create a wide, colorful palette. Nothing feels simple or resolved. Everything feels alive and in motion. The melody itself is mysterious, largely due to its disjunct motion and rhythmic offset. It never quite lands where you expect it to. The theme is first introduced by the piano. As the track develops, other instruments take over fragments of the melody, but the piano never loses its importance. Even when it steps into the background, it remains a constant presence in the accompaniment. After listening to the full soundtrack, one thing becomes pretty clear. It appears in every track and plays a central role in most of them. Because of that, I see the piano as representing our playable character. It often carries the melody forward, just like the player does in the game. The world of Sword of the Sea is kind of alien, and that's represented by the extent usage of synthesizers. The piano, however, does feel very familiar. We know this instrument, we know this sound. It's very human, and that's why it's a perfect choice to assign it to our main character. Another instrument worth highlighting is the Mayan drone flute. Its unique timbre gives the soundtrack much of its identity. It makes the music instantly recognizable and beautifully evokes the desert environment the game is set in. The sound doesn't feel like it belongs to the player. It feels ancient, like it's coming from the world itself. It gives the soundtrack its soul. The second track I want to focus on is Korunim. It's probably my favorite piece in the entire soundtrack. If I had to describe both Sword of the Sea and this track with one word, it would be motion. Your character is always moving. That's the game's core identity, and Korunim mirrors that perfectly. The track begins slowly, almost cautiously, and gradually accelerates. It never feels static. It always feels like it's going somewhere. The piano, our main character, provides rhythmic interest as the music evolves. We move from long, drawn-out legato lines to dotted marching rhythms and finally into fast-paced arpeggios. It feels like a journey towards something distant, something just out of reach. Narratively, it reflects the path our character must take to save a dying kingdom. The minor key acknowledges constant obstacles, but there is always a sense of momentum pushing forward. There is struggle, but also hope. Fragments of choir begin to appear in Korunim, and this is where things get really interesting. As mentioned earlier, the idea of using a choir started as a joke basically. But in that podcast clip, the host elaborated on the answer, saying that the choir creates a strange feeling of space and sacrality. It makes what you're watching feel sacred, like it's bordering on something ritualistic. That idea stayed with Austin, and its full impact becomes clear in the next track. One drop remained. If Korunim represents the journey, then one drop remained feels like a place to rest. Its hopeful tone reassures us that what we are doing matters. The instrumentation becomes much richer here. Alongside the piano and synthesizers, we hear woodwinds, strings, and solo voices. And most importantly, the choir. As already stated, throughout the soundtrack, instruments often represent aspects of the world. The piano is our main character, and the choir, in my interpretation, represents what we are trying to save. Whether that's the people, the land, or the world itself, the choir embodies purpose. Because of its sacred quality, it feels like something we can devote ourselves to. something larger than the individual journey. Its presence throughout the soundtrack acts as a reminder of why we move forward, why we endure obstacles. In One Drop Remained, the choir amplifies the music's sense of hope. It feels like discovering an oasis in an endless desert, a moment of rest, a moment of clarity, before the journey continues. The next track I would like to talk about is The Veiled Sea. By this point in the soundtrack, something has shifted. For the very first time, the strings take on a much larger role. They carry the melody for most of the track, stepping into the foreground in a way we haven't heard before. The instrumentation as a whole expands. The sound feels broader, heavier, like the world has suddenly grown larger around us. To me, this moment represents a realization. Up until now, the journey has been defined by motion, by momentum, by the simple act of moving forward. But in The Veiled Sea, it feels like our character finally understands the true weight of the journey. Not just where he is going, but why he is going there. There's beauty in it, but also restraint. This isn't triumph, it's understanding. That realization brings with it a sense of melancholy, a mixture of emotions, hope intertwined with loss, purpose mixed with doubt. The music doesn't push us forward the way earlier tracks did. Instead, it asks us to sit with what this journey really means. It's the sound of a character who knows there's no turning back. Looking back at Sword of the Sea as a whole, one thing becomes clear. The mystical world, our character, the journey he must take, and the reason why he has to do it. Everything is present in the music. The piano carries us forward, embodying the player and the journey itself. The world speaks through ancient textures and breath-like instruments. And the choir reminds us that what we are doing matters, that this journey borders on the sacred. What began as a joke, the idea of scoring motion with church choir, became the emotional backbone of the game. In Sword of the Sea, you are not just skating across the world, you are moving towards something worth saving, and the music makes sure you never forget why.